a generation where women really cooked, and men, but women really cooked, you know? So I had grandmothers and great grandmothers in Texas, but I also had a German grandmother who was, I know she probably was bullshitting me, but, you know, told me that, you know, oh, you know, Cynthia, I was the chef to Count so-and-so or some prince or some fucker, I don't know. But when I would visit her in Florida, I'm digressing into this because to me it's so crazy, these two separate women that really taught me how to cook. And everything was natural for her. But my German grandmother, you got to the table in the morning, even I as a little girl and my whole family, and you had to have a shot of bourbon to start the morning. And then you had tons of food. You just had ridiculous food. You had pork chops, you had eggs, you had poached, you know, and then she'd try to make me eat poached eggs, or not poached eggs, but those, you know, eggs in a cup. And sometimes there'd be shells and I'd try to spit out and she'd go, eat it, it's good for you, it's calcium. So, you know, it's like that kind of shit. So I grew up like that with her, and everything was about the food and how beautiful and how grand and how much. And the other grandmother from Texas, where I learned so much about baking and barbecuing, because they were all ranchers and they were all very competitive. The sisters, the aunts, who made the best pie, who made the best vanilla ice cream, the peach ice cream. So I was surrounded by, you know, one would take me to the fig trees and go, you know, get the best figs, you know, so Aunt Bee doesn't have it, you know, and that was Aunt Peggy and then Uncle Howard. And then I had uncles that would take me fishing on their big ranches, and I learned how to catfish, and they were so horrible and they're so ugly and they're so big, but they taught me how to do that. Then they wanted me to kill shit, but I said, no, I can't be killing any deers. But they'd jump out of the car and go, come on, Sin. So, you know, I mean, so yeah, I grew up a lot around that. It's, you know, everything. And I think that's why those people lived so long, you know, and they were healthy. One of the things that I remember somebody said to me years ago when I was living in Soho, and then I had like, you know, I would do all these dinner parties, and somebody said, you know, your food tastes like the dirt, like the earth. And I said, I thought that was a great compliment. I said, yeah, that's, you know, it's all the different layers that you get from all the different things that you're cooking with and making. And that's why cannabis is so fabulous for that, because I mean, what an amazing product, you know, what a wonderful plant. We cooked all the time in my family. We entertained, we went out to dinner, to expensive dinners. So it was always tasting. Life was about the food, you know. Family might not have gotten along very well, but everybody came together for the food, and everybody had to outdo each other. So I learned how to be competitive in that atmosphere. But the food, wanting to be, no, we just cooked, you know? I mean, I'd have to sit on the floor sometimes when I come back from school. My mother would be doing a dinner party and she'd say, I want you to clean the crabs. Well, there'd be like 400 hard-shelled crabs that I'd have to hand pick, you know, for crab cakes. And I said, okay, you know, so when you learn to do all that, but so I didn't want a career in it. I just understood it. And I taught cooking when I was living in New York City. And I also did a lot of, when I lived in Paris before then, I was had a design business, but we also, my friends and I, we would do these dinner parties, and then we would do these really grand, I remember the first time we did a sushi, this David and I, and it was like, what the fuck is this? You know, we had a gigantic tuna they had just like dropped on this gorgeous table. I'm not going to say whose place it was because they were very famous, but I was like, David, what are we, yes? So it's like we had to sort of teach ourselves to cut the tuna. It was like gigantic. It was crazy. But so I didn't get into I did the food. I was always about the food. We had hydroponics when we lived in Durham, North Carolina. We were the first people for Duke University because we had enough land, and then hydroponics were done outside. So I remember that as a kid in particular. That was like such a big deal to go to the side part of the property and see this. So I don't know. I mean, when I was in New York, I still had the design business. So, you know, we had won awards, and I had 2 dresses in Metropolitan Museum of Art and all that bullshit. So, but it was always still the food, you know, I was still entertaining, still doing food, you know, making sure that the pigs had just been killed, that my mother would bring them up from somebody's farm in Virginia so I could have them for a dinner party. So it was that kind of thing. And then I don't know what happened. I know what happened. I don't know, I'll tell the story. Well, when I opened it, I mean, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. It was just another piece of property to me, and I loved designing it. It was fun. And then I realized quickly I had to learn a business really fast, and I had to take everything that I knew and I had to somehow translate it. So when the day we opened, I had one guy working with me in the kitchen. I wanted a short order cook. I don't know what that was about. And I had one little 15-year-old dishwasher. And of course, I had a lot of friends that said, oh, you poor thing, we'll come and, probably have nobody there, blah, blah, blah. So I said, oh, thanks, So I put like 40 things on the menu because growing up in the South, I had to have grits, I had to have fried chicken livers, I had to have gravy, I had to have fried oysters. It was just like, so I'm like just having fun making this crazy menu. We had staff that had never served. And so that first day we did 342 covers that morning with little handwritten dupes. Yeah. And I froze. I've never froze in my life. And the guy, Greg, turned around and he whacked the shit out of me. And he said, girl, you better wake the fuck up. He said, because this is real and you cannot ever stop in a kitchen. And so that was one of the best lessons I ever got in my life, You're right. You can't ever stop. You stop, you're fucked. In anything, not just the food world. So for me, that was the introduction to it. And then once I understood I couldn't have 1,000 items, I really just had a lot of fun because for me, it was just like I was playing, I get to make whatever I want. I get to do whatever I want. Well, that came about because of somebody I had met, a very famous person who I wanted to meet, and I was opening a very big restaurant for a client. And so I found out who was handling this person's food. And I said, I want to do that. I'll come over and I'll help you, because I knew she didn't know anything. And she's like, no, they can't afford you. And I don't want you there. And I said, oh, no, you need help. So finally, they did not like her food. So they gave her an ultimatum, get somebody else. So she had no choice, but she called me and she goes, no, but give me one of your chefs. I said, no, I'll come. Don't worry about it. I'll do it. So I did. And I knew what I was going to do. I wanted to take it over, that situation. And I did. And that was great fun. Those 10 years or whatever that I worked with this person was fabulous. And it was like, not nearing the end, of course. Nothing is good nearing the end. That's the end. But the beginning was fabulous. And so I got to really do any kind of food, all the foods that I had eaten all over the world. I could just keep educating this person and having them taste and learning. And and they, and they're smoking weed. So they'll just keep eating the food. Oh, so yeah. I used to call them feedings, we were having feedings day in and day out. I mean, I never worked so hard in my life and I never enjoyed something so much. That was fun. And I think we were like 12 or 13 when we were smoking weed. And of course it was just horrific weed. But that's all we had. So that's what we did. But, and then I went away to boarding school at like 14 and 15. And so that's where we started to cook with the weed. We were all smoking. And I mean, I'd get caught smoking in the dorm. I'd have to go to detention, all this bullshit. And I go, oh, but I didn't feel good. I just smoked. Anyway, all the teachers smoked too. So it was like I went to a very liberal schools. So we started, the first time we did it, I think I talked about it on Cooked with Cannabis, but we were making spaghetti marinara for the headmaster. And we said, oh, fuck, let's just put some weed in. So we just loaded up with weed, and of course the headmaster, Mom, he said, those are fabulous foods, fabulous. We were like, yeah. So we were like, always, we were like constantly, we were smoking every day in those days. Everybody was, and dropping acid. I mean, we did it all. That's what you do. That's what you do. I think that one of the things is that, first of all, after coming out of the world of and then being in Europe, all they had was hash. You never got pot. So, and now I love hash to death, and I wish I had more hash all the time. But back then it was like, oh shit. But anyway, so when I worked with this particular celebrity, just how amazing their weed was. I mean, it's like I woke up out of a dream. It was like, what the fuck is this? You know, they come through the room and I go, do I smell pineapples? Or, you know, do I smell bubble gum? You know, and it's like, give it to me, give it to me. So that, and then it was actually P. Diddy that taught me how to really cook it the way they wanted to one afternoon. He said, come, let me show you how I like to cook it. So I said, cool. So we did that. And then it just got, you know, I was having so much fun learning how to cook with every single smell and sense. And it was like, it was always there for me, just whatever I wanted. You know, do I want something that's more sour? What was that you guys were smoking? You know, I was very fortunate to have an open cabinet of whatever I wanted to learn how to play with and to marry up with others' tastes and spices. And so from there, though, I will tell you that I've done that for years, obviously, since that really started in 2000, I believe, or 1999, somewhere around then, when I really started to be able to use all the amazing ingredients and get known for that. I mean, every party, I did lots of parties every weekend, big parties. So I was known for that. And then I'd marry alcohol with that and do all of those things. So finally, though, I started to say, it's just too much. You know, the weed is so strong. And I really wanted to have something delicate. I didn't want everybody to lose the sense of what they were tasting, you know, and the type of high, because everybody was just getting fucked up, you know. Couch lock, as my friend says. It's just, I wanted to change that, you know, but I wasn't sure. I knew how to microdose LSD and how to do mushrooms, but I hadn't microdosed cannabis. And but I started to like play around with that, you know, and try to figure out, and then I just tried to educate myself. I mean, I read more and more and more about the whole thing and about the product. And really, instead of just having it like school time, fun time, I told myself, you know, you really got to learn this, girl. And then weirdly enough, at the same time, I have a friend of mine who's a casting agent, and he called me up and he said, are you still cooking with weed? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, I have a show for you, maybe. So let's make it happen. So that's how I got on Cooked with Cannabis last year. And it was all about microdosing. So it was just like perfect, you know, just came together. Yay. Yeah. You know, microdosing is difficult. It's not, and everybody does it differently. And I'm going to be honest here, because I have tried to tell people how to do it the right way. I've done classes. I've had friends that I've given. Forget it. You know, it's like it depends. Everything is based on the strain, how strong it is, what the hybrids are, you know, what your own physicality is, how much can you take, how much can you not take. So I can, you know, it's no longer 28 grams, you know, in a pot with some fucking butter and water with, you know, a pound of butter. I mean, it's very different and very nuanced, but it's still hard. I mean, I did it yesterday, you know, and I do it every day for certain clients. And I'm like constantly playing around with, should I do a little more, knowing the client, you know, because if they smoke a lot of weed, that's the other problem, you know. But I'm like, listen, this is about the taste, the food, the high. You know, I'm like, enough with smoking, smoke after. I don't give a fuck, but not during the meal. I'm sorry, but I know some pretty motherfucking heavy, you know, and it's, to me, after a while, it dulls their sense of taste. I mean, I don't want anybody to stop smoking weed because I love to smoke weed, but I'm just saying that you know, there's an experience there that's incredibly special. You know, it's like the first time you ever had a foie gras, or the first time you ever had, you know, something that was just blew your mind, or an amazing wine. And it's the same with weed, you know, certain strains and tastes, and it's endless. And I want you to actually be able to taste that strain of weed, if I can. You know, they're changing so rapidly. I used to love mimosa for certain citrusy things. I used to, you know, unfortunately, fortunately, I am still a woman who loves any kind of diesel, sour diesel. Even if it comes in, I just love it. I can't help it. The minute I smell it in a room, I go, oh, you know, I mean, that's just like a favorite. That's like going home, you know, I guess, you know, it's like I'm having fried chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy, and biscuits, you know, it's like I get to have some sour diesel. So I love that. But the strains are so, you know, they're just so they just, I mean, like every month they're changing. You know, so my guy comes up, he says, oh, I got this, I got this, and now that's a combination of Girl Scout cookies and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, you know, it's like, I don't want them to kill it. You know what I mean? I don't want it to be such a hybrid that I'm losing the sense of what you got originally. You're gonna just ruin the genes after a while. So I have all this kind of angst about, don't kill the product itself. There's something very beautiful in the strain being very pure, you know? I mean, I love mixing, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 10 years when it comes, you know, say, particularly with pharmaceutical people getting a hold of it. You know, I don't have a lot of hope. Everybody thinks they know everything about food. Everybody thinks they know, you know, how to put this together, how to put that together. Everybody's a chef, you know. It's like, even my clients drive me crazy, you know. Oh, well, I want this. And I'm like, you know, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. You know, it's like, well, but that's what everybody's eating. I don't care what they're eating. I want, you know, so it's difficult. And I even know in terms of purity of product, can't trust the fish a lot of times, even if you've got a great source. Just, you know, so I kind of feel like that about the weed. I feel like once the big corporations are in there, you can forget about, you know, it'll be about, I'm afraid it'll be more about the strength and what it does as opposed to being the flavor and the sense and the smell and what it does, because the bottom line is the dollar. And there's so much money in cannabis that we haven't even begun to, you know, the corporations have been into this for so long. I mean, I remember years ago, you know, friends of mine who were turned around businesses were talking about down in the South, you know, in the Carolinas, where cigarette companies were, you know, they were already preparing for cannabis. And, you know, that was something like 20 years ago when I had these people telling me this, because they were doing stuff with the cigarette companies and saying that it's like, you know, they're getting ready to take it over, you know? So it's like everything, right? You know, it's like, you know, when somebody says, oh no, that's snapper, I go, I don't think so. I think you think it's snapper, but that's not snapper, you know? They're like 1,000 different varieties, but do you have a real red snapper? I don't know. Well, I'm hoping to get the book out. Well, we're still going back and forth, but I wanted it by 4/20, obviously 21. We'll see. You know, it's not the end of my life if that doesn't happen. And right now, in terms of the other part of the bakery business, you know, we're looking for a space to buy. So, you know, I'm kind of like in the middle of all of that as well.